Perfect. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our San Diego Farm Sustainability webinar. We really appreciate your time today. As I just mentioned, this webinar will be recorded and it will also be available to all the guests and all the folks that weren't able to join us this afternoon. So we will be sending that out following the webinar. My name is Dane Peterson. I'm an employee of Community Health Improvement Partners, where I serve as the program coordinator for the Farm to Institution Center initiative. Community Health Improvement Partners is CHIP is a local 501c3 community health-based nonprofit organization. And really at CHIP, what we do is we try to advance long-term solutions to priority health needs out in the community through collaboration and community engagement. For the Farm to Institution Center, really the mission is, and what we do is really in our name. We're an initiative of CHIP, and what we do is we really promote healthy local communities and build a vibrant agricultural scene through facilitation, collaboration, and of course, education. Some of our goals and our missions include increasing the access and consumption of healthy foods in collaboration with school districts, hospitals, and other institutional partners. We also look to instill a passion for local food through education, advocacy, and community engagement. Of course, being the Farm to Institution Center, we want to support our farmers in the creation of a vibrant, diverse, and of course, growing local agricultural scene. And we do that in many different ways. So today we're really honored to be talking about a program that we actually facilitated called the San Diego Farm Sustainability Program. So before we hop into that, many of you joining us today familiar with us, our small but passionate team. But for those who aren't too familiar with us, I'd like to just take a quick opportunity just to introduce our staff. So as I mentioned, my name is Dane Peterson. I'm the program coordinator. My background is actually in kinesiology and health promotion, as well as psychology. But I've been with Community Health Improvement Partners in the Farm to Institution Center for about 4 years, where I support really the coordination, the logistics, and I also truly enjoy the brokering of sales between farmers and buyers. So I'll pass it over to Tony.
Thank you, Dane. My name is Tony Kraft. I'm the Senior Program Manager. I've had 25 years in food systems throughout California and in through the Midwest, where I have been specializing in local food, farm to table, farm to desk for both schools, hospitals, and institutions. My last restaurant that I owned was on 10 acres of farm and ranch and vineyard. And I'm pleased to be able to work with you on this wonderful webinar. And we're pleased to work alongside these two passionate individuals on this program. Natalie?
Thank you, Tony. My name is Natalie LaRoe, and I'm the program assistant for the F2I Center. My background is actually in environmental science with an emphasis on sustainable agriculture. So in college, I served as an intern on a farm for a year. And I've been working here now as the intern for about 2 years. And I'm so happy to be here today to share about this amazing program. Thank you.
Thank you all. And then we're going to introduce our panelists. I'm just going to talk a little bit about our program and overview, and then I'm going to pass it over to our panelists to talk about who they are and their backgrounds as well. So why are we here today and what are we talking about? So today we're talking about the San Diego Farm Sustainability Program. For the remainder of this webinar, we're going to be using the acronym SDFSP. So what is SDFSP? It's a 20-month no-cost business development course that was designed for a small group of San Diego farmers and growers. This program really features and focuses on sustaining local specialty crop farm businesses through strategic agricultural expert guidance. This program really also utilizes a curriculum-based framework to provide technical assistance in 3 areas. Those 3 areas are crop planning, business design, and farm laws and regulations. Those 3 areas were selected in order to support the sustainability of farm to institution business relationships here in San Diego County. These areas of technical assistance were identified as major areas of concerns from our growers in San Diego, according to the University of California Cooperative Extension's Growers Needs for Assessment for Sustainable Food Production in San Diego County. So today, what are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about a lot of components of our program. So we'll start off with the implementation. We'll talk about some of the outcomes, the evaluation of the program, what we see the value of this program is in San Diego County. We'll also talk about, of course, our lessons learned from this program, as well as kind of areas for improvements and recommendations. We'll wrap up with some testimonials. So we'll hear from some quotes from some of the farmers, the buyers, and even some subject matter experts that participated in the program. And then, of course, we wanted to give our acknowledgments and our big thank yous to everybody involved. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Natalie, who's going to talk about how did this program get up and running and how did we implement it? So take it away, Natalie.
Perfect. Thank you, Dane. So the first step in our process was creating and disseminating marketing materials through social media, grower listservs, and partner organizations in order to recruit 8 farmers to complete the application. And thank you to all of our partners who helped spread the word. In total, we received 21 applications, which we evaluated based on years of experience, challenges faced, sales by market channels, current farm practices, the amount and type of produce grown, as well as acreage utilized and available. Of those 21 applications, 12 farmers were selected and enrolled into phase 1 of the program. And we thought it would be beneficial to onboard an additional 2 to 4 farmers in case of the participant fallout.
Thank you, Natalie. So out of those, out of that cohort, those 12 farmers, we invited them to join a virtual orientation forum, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But I really want to do right now is introduce our subject matter experts. So I'll go ahead and start from left to right. Eric, if you could unmute and just talk a little bit about your background and your experience here in San Diego County as it relates to agriculture.
Thank you, Dane. Following my education at MiraCosta Community College in San Luis Obispo studying horticulture, I'm very proud to say I had a 50-year career in local agriculture, all in San Diego County. And that bridged a number of different things, including production, wholesale sales, and then nonprofit organization management. I got a lot of joy out of that. I spent a tremendous amount of time running 2 nonprofits, one that was a cooperative marketing operation, another one, the Farm Bureau that assisted farmers. In that, I got exposed to and learned a lot about the laws and regulations affecting farmers and spent a lot of time in my career helping farmers navigate laws and regulations, which made this program a very good fit for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Next, I'd like to introduce Scott Murray with Murray Farms Incorporated. Scott, I don't know if you're out on the farm today, but could you unmute yourself if you're capable, and then share a little bit about yourself and your background for us, please? I'm going to take that as Scott's probably on the farm. So we'll actually move to Prem to Rayraj, and then I will introduce Scott, read a little bit about his bio. So Prem, could you talk a little bit about your area of expertise and your experience?
Sure. So within the SDFSP program, I'm the farm business subject matter expert, but my background is really in development and social impact work for the majority of my career for about 15 or 17 years, and really working initially primarily on finance and financial management, which made me I think well suited for this program. But then combining that with the experience of with actually community health improvement partners as the director of food systems for a number of years, working as, really Dane summed it up best, but working towards the viability of farmers and improving sales and business sustainability. I think through the work there, as well as actually through the San Diego Farm for Profit program, which was also a CDFA specialty crop block grant that we were connected through Kitchen Table Consultants. There was a direct emphasis in terms of supporting farmers one-on-one, as well as through group trainings that led well into the SDFSP program, which I'm happy to be connected to.
Perfect. Thank you, Prem. Scott, I see that you unmuted. Do we have you here?
I'm here.
Oh, perfect. It is a little hard to hear you. But yeah, if you could introduce yourself and your experience, that would be great.
Well, my name is Scott Murray, and I've been an organic farmer for 48 years, an elected conservation official for 29 years, and I just muted my.
We're having a hard time hearing you. I know you might be on the road traveling from farm to farm.
This signal. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Very passionate about the success of all farmers because we need to have them available to basically keep our food supply viable. And over the generations, we've lost farmers about 2% of our population, and now we're coming back. And through this program, one of the things we learned is that farmers need a lot of support because generally they have a passion for growing, but not necessarily a lot of business experience or even growing experience. To work with the to help them develop solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. All right, so next up, so following kind of, as I mentioned, we had an orientation call. So really what of this orientation call was really just to inform our participants, get to know kind of our program staff, kind of understand the areas of support that were offered by our subject matter experts, Eric, Frame, and Scott. Also discuss some of the program components. So really, what are you getting into? The commitments. We did have farmers participate and fill out surveys. So we wanted to be honest and upfront with them about that component. We also talked about some of the commonly reported challenges and the potential next steps. Where do we go from here? So really following those that orientation call, we then had individual assessment calls that we scheduled between program staff, the subject matter experts, and the phase 1 participants. Really, the purpose of this was to discuss their farm operation more in depth, to get to know about exactly what are they producing, what are their immediate challenges, and also talk about where they want to take their business and where they want to ultimately grow. So following the assessment calls each month, we sent appointment scheduling links where we distributed those to our participants in order to schedule one-on-one sessions with subject matter experts or our program staff, either Natalie, myself, or Tony. So following a one-on-one session, the SMEs developed and submitted meeting reports to the program staff. Really, these reports included key discussion topics. So what was discussed, the current challenges and how we're exactly addressing those challenges, next steps, and then any milestones or anything that was really achieved throughout these calls. So really, by providing and customizing support for each of the participating farmers' needs, the program really sought to improve the overall business practices with the goal of sustaining their farm businesses and ultimately growing their profits. In addition to the one-on-one meetings, technical assistance was also provided and farmers received it through farmer forums, which were educational gatherings where we covered and delivered relevant and timely topics of interest. So you can see here some of our forum topics included agriculture and farming in San Diego, regulatory compliances, high density crop planning, water sourcing and management, organic certification, tax considerations for farmers, which I knew all the farmers really, really enjoyed. And then also how to read a profit and loss statement. So in early 2021, the SDFSP program actually expanded its reach by recruiting, assessing, and then onboarding an additional 10 farmers to participate. Phase 2 of the program. Phase 2 participants actually received priority in one-on-one session support from the subject matter experts during the remaining 10 months of the program, while phase 1 participants really only received support through the educational farmer forums, unless there was something that was really, really that they desperately needed to talk to one of those experts about. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to Tony Kraft, who's going to talk a little bit about the outcomes.
Thank you. Well, we saw that educational farm forums, there was some wonderful outcomes related to those and the technical assistance provided. And Eric, would you be kind enough to talk a little bit about regulations and compliances in working with our farmers?
Oh, Eric, you are muted right now.
I am so sorry for being muted. But what's nice in working with our growers, there was no blatant disregard for rules and regulations. We just occasionally there were some issues where they just didn't have awareness of those rules, and we focused in on several things: labor law, and a lot of times that's just a matter of overtime, keeping records correct. Pesticides, that's the 100% use reporting. Some of our farmers didn't realize they had to have a relationship with the County of San Diego. Runoff compliance, all farmers have to make sure their runoff water is clean. Land use, obeying setbacks and make sure you're not doing things on your farm that aren't allowed under law. And then food safety. Most of the farmers in this program were under the threshold for required compliance with national food safety rules. But it was really great in this program. We were able to point it out to all of them that one of their best practices in their farm should be food safety, and they should be thinking about the consumers that their food would be going to. Two things popped up in the program that I'm really glad they popped up, and they really weren't part of our awareness in the beginning. The first one was neighbor issues and what a farmer's rights are when they have a neighbor who might not like what they're doing on their farm, and maybe they get a code compliance complaint from the county or the city, and the fact that the farmers had rights, and we let them know how they can defend themselves on that. And the other one was risk management. Farmers go into the business kind of leading with their heart and maybe not understanding what the business is and what the risks are, especially from a liability standpoint. And just letting the farmers know they got to manage their risk. They want to make sure that they're not at risk if something happens in regard to their products or their farms or their vehicles. And so just make sure you have good liability insurance and manage that risk. So I think everything was just positive on all the outcomes. And I'm really glad the farmers who took part did, because I think they're going to be better farmers after the fact. Thank you.
Yes, I couldn't agree more on Eric, and your guidance was very, very fruitful. Prem, would you speak a little bit about the financial and business planning outcomes for this program?
There we go. Yes, absolutely. So, if you take a step back a little bit, I mean, people come to farming because of passion. Some people come to farming for business. Almost no one comes to farming for finance and financial management. So it's actually very useful that I think that, and I was very excited and happy actually to be a part of this program in regards to supporting farmers in financial management, because it's an area that there's a lot to be supported in potentially. And as it relates, I think I would also just like to say that one of the things I try to hammer home is the idea that to do it right and to do it in a way that actually leads to better decision making, which is ultimately the main purpose, at least to me, in regards to financial management, is to create better farms. There needs to be a consistency of work on it, and it leads to sort of long-term gains. Some of the areas that I was happy enough to support farmers on is developing budgets, budget to actuals, keeping people within like a system of financial management, again, like a regularity of it. Reviewing accounting related to profit and loss statements, chart of accounts, things like that. Things that, oftentimes might sound a little bit boring, but actually if you follow through and have a consistency of those things, that's how you start seeing trends and seeing how, you can reduce costs or improve how you're actually crop planning. And then on the other side, in terms of marketing and increasing revenue, developing it, thinking about price points, is hugely important. Doing the research in relation to that, looking at markets and figuring out how we can sort of improve our businesses to create sustainability and grow. So I think those are a few of the things that I had worked on. I was happy to be a part of.
Thank you. Yes, a lot of questions revolved around the finance portion of it. Prem, you were invaluable to help us with that. I know the farmers appreciated it. And a lot of it was in the beginning over their heads, but you really made it modern day and, put it on our level for sure. Scott, would you like to talk to us about operations and crop planning? I think this goes right hand in hand with our next line for outcomes, please.
Unmuted.
You are unmuted.
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and just speak to that. I think Scott's probably in a bad spot
Sure.
with his vehicle. I know that Scott was working with a lot of our farmers and still is working with our farmers kind of on ongoing support for maintaining and expanding the production areas and really looking at what crops to grow, sourcing options, planting guides, and maximizing current and future production and improving labor and facilities. So you can't have regulations of compliance and financial planning and then realize I have all this and what do I do with these crops? So it leads us into our role in the outcomes, the Farm to Institution Center. And we were there to be instrumental in facilitating sales, introduce and facilitate farm to buyer sales relationships in those within and outside our program. So it was really, as you see when we go through this webinar, how we facilitated and connected, as Dane would always say, connect the dots between our farmers and the buyers in every area. And that kind of expanded to sometimes outside of our program, which was great to see. And the reason for that was because what we realized that there was a lot of peer-to-peer networking and outsourcing and mentoring. And when I saw that, it was that this peer-to-peer actually was sort of a hybrid of some of our forums. And if I can have that, thank you, our next slide. When we had our farm forums and our farm to buyer gatherings, which we just did this last Tuesday, we realized that gathering and breaking for bread help the discussions to facilitate more and foster more relationships and holistically. And I think that's pretty much why this program was considered the holistic approach report. Through this program, we realized that not only the farmers were closer in proximity to each other, but very similar to business model and more so than we really anticipated and expected. So we realized that working with our farmers and helping them to find out, through our subject matter experts, you're not alone in this farming journey. We held your hand, and it's nice to be able to see the successes of those, which we're going to talk about through the process of this webinar as well. Thank you, Dane. I think you have our next part, so please take it over.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, so as Tony mentioned, a huge role that the Farm to Institution Center played was really facilitating sales. Having your finances and your laws and regulations and that you're producing a lot of food is fine and dandy, but ultimately, if you're not selling that product, what's going on with the business? So throughout this program, we were able to facilitate a total of 72 total farm to buyer connections or introductions. Of those 72 connections, 38 resulted in successful sales, and which is roughly around a 52.7 success rate. These relationships, these successful relationships, either resulted in a one-time purchase or a long-time contract or relationship. I then wanted to show some of the numbers year after year throughout this program. So as we can see, here are our numbers related to the amount of local food that was brokered, as well as the dollars spent and invested back into our local producers. So here's our number for 2020. And then as comparison to 2021, we all know a lot of institutions and restaurants and all really good food purchasers had a challenging time with COVID. So with 2021, we see an uptick in about 40,000, a little more than 40,000 pounds of produce the following year. And then we saw a massive jump in the dollars that were spent. And then finally, throughout this grant period, throughout the 20 months, we saw over 250,000 pounds of local food being brokered within participants inside the program, outside of the program. And really this equated to around $447,000 that are being spent on local produce here in San Diego County. Now going to pass it over to Natalie, who's going to be talking a little bit about the evaluation of the San Diego Farm Sustainability Program.
Great, thank you, Dane. We all know that a program is only as strong as its evaluation. So let's take a look at the evaluation of SDFSP. There were 4 metrics that we used to evaluate the impact and success of the SDFSP. And these included, firstly, farm revenue, including both 6-month and annual sales. So collectively, participating farms increased their annual sales by $172,976. And overall, that's about a 31% increase in revenue. But roughly only 2 years worth of data was collected. However, it can be assumed that the financial benefit of this program will carry on through even beyond the program's end. The next metric that was used was best practices. And this means the adoption of practices to support the sustainability of the farm businesses. And this includes keeping up to date on new and evolving laws and regulations, implementing a budget to actual review process, crop planning, and more. And a total of 34 best practices were adopted by participants, which is about a 41% increase from the baseline. The next metric we used was small business and agricultural jobs. While the pandemic impacted the maintenance and growth of small agricultural businesses and jobs, within SDFSP, 19 small ag businesses were maintained, 53 ag jobs were maintained, and 2 ag jobs were created. And lastly, program satisfaction served as our final metric. These were the ratings that we received from participants following the program completion. And the average rating was 4.74 out of 5, which is a 95% satisfaction rating. And with that, I will pass it over to Tony now for the value of the program. Thank you.
Well, this is near and dear to Chip's heart, realizing that there's value into the program. And the value of SDFSP's program lies within the ability to provide small groups of diverse farms and farmers and in-depth guidance on their most pressing challenges. While various technical assistance programs are available throughout San Diego, many are not able to provide this individualized wraparound support that's desperately needed to improve growing operations, as we discussed, financial planning, and business sustainability. To meet participants actually where they're doing their business and working, and directing them towards not only the short-term goals, but long-term goals. To address specific and evolving needs of today's farmers through a combination of our one-to-ones, as we were talking about, these sessions became very valuable, and also the peer-to-peer networking and these small group mentoring programs. And so this gives us these networking opportunities and partnerships that we had seen amongst our farmers. So to kind of overview and recap, some of the key features of this program are meeting farmers where they are and where they're doing business, directing them towards their short-term and long-term goals, addressing very specific and evolving needs of today's farmers, creating these conduits for peer-to-peer networking opportunities, and in some cases, partnerships and co-ops, introducing institutional buyers with farmers and vendors, and supporting these farmers in entering new and pivotal sales channels. So these are really a great value, in some cases, value added to this program. Now, on to lessons learned.
Thanks, Tony. So obviously over a 2-year program, there are a lot of lessons that were learned. I think the first lesson that I'd like to talk about right now is just understanding your audience and your target audience. As I mentioned in the beginning of the overview of the program, really the goal of the program was to build sustainability through business relationships with institutional partners here in San Diego County. However, we quickly found that not all the participants were really positioned or interested in working with institutions for various reasons, whether it was the crops they were grown, the size of their operation, maybe picking, packing, and delivering restraints. What we found is that a lot of these participants actually required the foundational farm business support in order to build, sustain, and ultimately grow their operations in a sustainable fashion. Since we did see a great need for support among aspiring farmers in San Diego County, we suggest that future technical assistance programs really should be designed with the flexibility to support producers regardless of where they are in establishing themselves in their farming career. The next lesson learned through this program was that one size farm does not fit all. As many of you know, joining us today, the median size farm in San Diego County is roughly 4 acres, which can often create complications when fulfilling an institution's weekly, or even monthly produce order. So for our participants, their acreage really ranged from 0.01 to 70 acres with roughly a 10.5 acreage average. So there was definitely opportunity and potential opportunities for successful farm to institution partnerships. While some of our more micro and urban operations, we really wanted to support them in maximizing the production on their operation in order to meet the needs of the buyers that they're looking to target. Or we encourage them to join already established CSA programs or strategically talk about their direct-to-consumer market plans. The next lessons learned is really kind of on CHIP's end, on the farm to institutions end, and the role that we played with brokering farm to buyer sales. So one strategy we'd like to suggest moving forward is to really recruit buyers based on the needs of the farmers. Often the demand, as we all know, the demand of a product really initiates the search for it, looking for the supply. So if we can recruit through these programs, if we can recruit a diverse pool of committed buyers that are able to handle and process fresh fruits and vegetables from some of our producers, it can really ease that process. What products are coming down the pipeline or price line, and really where we can find a home for that. Next up, I want to talk about kind of shifting the sales opportunities. So as many of us know, throughout the pandemic, the procurement of local specialty crops really fluctuated, especially with our institutions. And this was really because many of these institutions had to pivot their serving models based on the guidelines that they were receiving. So a lot of the traditional and non-traditional, what we call access points for fresh fruits and vegetables, like salad bars, self-service cafeterias, taste tests, special events, really, you name it, really took a hit and were ultimately eliminated over the pandemic due to the fear of the contamination and also of potential labor shortages that they were experiencing. So what we did as program staff is we really sought out opportunities to incorporate local produce as it presented itself, as school districts then began to utilize whole fresh fruits and vegetables into their grab and go meal distributions. And throughout the pandemic, as we saw the inequities in our local food system and the gaps, local really became more appetizing than ever and more important than ever, because we know that there were shortages in food, but there were local vendors that were ready to supply. So with many of these institutions really time and labor deprived, their ability to work with local producers was really severely restricted. So to ensure that we were still able to facilitate sales, we really broadened our reach to corporate institutions, as well as non-institutional buyers like catering companies and other businesses in order to facilitate sales during these challenging times. So here's just one example and a diagram of kind of what I was referring to about shifting sales opportunities and also recruiting flexible and diverse buyers. So if we know that here we have eight farmers and we know exactly what they're growing, and we're able to recruit what looks like a hospital, a school district, and then also a catering company, and we know what products that they're interested, whether it's tomatoes, whether it's citrus or avocados, we're better able to connect the dots, as Tony mentioned, connect the dots between these participants, our farmers, and the buyers itself. The last lesson learned that I kind of want to touch on is just the seamless continuation of program support. So as I mentioned in kind of the implementation and the overview of this program, really the technical assistance was designed to wean off the phase 1 participants from one-on-one meetings during year 2 of the program. And this was done for a variety of reasons. The first reason was really to prioritize the need for phase 2 participants to meet with their subject matter experts. It was also strategic in that it was a method for us to manage the budget allocated for subject matter experts. But what we found month after month was really that the support, it was apparent to us that the support was really after the need of the sought after guidance received that Prem, Eric, and Scott were providing to these participants. So for future program design, what we're going to account for in the future is really to grow these participant pages. We think it's critical that all participants receive the seamless support throughout the entirety of the program, whether it's 10 months or 20 months or 2 years. We want to make sure that we're maximizing the outcomes and the project results of this program. So the success of this program really lies within the longevity in order to educate and support farmers in their operations as they really grow and lay the foundation for their future. Next up, we're going to be talking about improvements and recommendations.
Perfect. Thank you, Dane. With every farm operation or even grant program, there are always areas to improve and grow. So we noted a few after this program we wanted to talk about. As Dane had already mentioned, one major improvement that we would like to talk about is to offer phase 1 participants one-on-one TA throughout the entirety of the program. While both incremental and major improvements in farm operations can be accomplished within a 10-month period, a 20-month period would allow farmers to receive guidance and support throughout multiple growing seasons. In order to offer continual support throughout the program, the available hours of SMEs must be creatively and strategically utilized from the onset of the program. One strategy to maximize efficiency would be to combine TA support sessions among farmers with similar challenges or operations. Although it has been found that the one-on-one support structure allows for more transparent dialogue and rapport building between farmers, SMEs, and staff. Additional considerations may include onboarding all participants at once or onboarding fewer participants overall. And finally, it may be beneficial to create and disseminate customized tools or resources of support for beginning farmers who are looking to organize and establish their operations quickly and efficiently. These tools could include P&L templates based on farm size or experience, as well as crop costing templates. These tools, if successful, could also be shared outside of the program to increase impact as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Okay, so enough of the Farm to Institution Center talking. I would like to share a couple of testimonials from some of our participants in this program. And then Natalie's going to put the link to our report in the chat where you can read all of the testimonials from our participants, from some of the buyers, as well as Scott also did a testimonial as well for us. So I'll go ahead and read the first two. So the first one is from Deborah Centrella from Guava Mama Farms. She was a phase 1 participant. And what Deborah said was that this program is really helping me take my farm to places I would have never imagined. This program has instilled in me the confidence to determine which distribution channels are most profitable for my farm and business and to pursue them. It has also helped me to look forward to the future, to research, diversifying, and determine how I might transition my farm in the future. The next testimonial I want to share is from Ryan Rizzuto, the former executive chef at Kitchens for Good. Ryan says, Chip and their San Diego Farm Sustainability Program has allowed us to redirect our spending to local produce to cook for our neighbors in need. Connecting institutions and organizations with purchasing power to small local farms was the missing link to elevating our San Diego food system. I am now able to purchase approximately 20% of our produce locally, which is a number I am to grow in the coming months. I then just wanted to open it up to either Eric, Prem, or Scott, just to say a couple of final words related to this program and that impact.
I'd like to add something. I think the realization as one of the subject matter experts that crop planning and understanding of cropping systems is critical to the success of farmers, and that innovation and new things, like we did a workshop on high density planting, and we had questions about going organic from a number of our growers. So the growers are evolving constantly, and they need a tremendous amount of support. Thank you.
Yeah, the comment I'd like to add is that a lot of people come into farming in a place like San Diego County, where it's actually, we have a lot of small parcels of land and people have a lot of interest in doing this, whether they're changing careers or starting out, but they don't know what they don't know. And so they have this idea of what they want to do about farming. And unless they get exposed to a program like this, it's almost impossible for them to go out and discover on their own all of these things they need to create a successful farm. So to me, that is just paramount to this program, to give these people a chance to talk to experts and to learn from a lot of people how things work, what they're supposed to be doing, and the right way and the wrong way to do things.
Yeah, so I'll just add one thing which is that I think when you talk to farmers, I mean, farming itself and the farming life can be, while like highly rewarding, it can also be kind of an isolating experience. And I think one of the things, one of the great things about this program itself was just the fact that not only did we each get to talk to the farmers and try to support them, which honestly always feels good and is like a good thing to do, and is rewarding in itself. But I think just the mere fact that that we're out there and we're all on each other's side, and we're sort of working together on different fronts. Yes, to support them on like the technical areas, but then also just to be there for a certain amount of time, I think I imagine was useful, and I think is great for building sort of a network itself for farmers. It was great to be a part of on that front.
Perfect. Thank you, Eric, Scott, and Prem. So I'm going to go ahead and advance to the next slide to talk about the acknowledgement. So take it away, Tony.
Thank you. I love being able to just finish with some wonderful thanks to our team, to Dane and to Natalie, and to our leadership here at the Community Health Improvement Partners. Their passion, their zeal is contagious, and we've seen that throughout this program. I also want to extend a personal and a professional thank you to Prem, Eric, and Scott. A while back, I think Eric had mentioned the fact that we were able to listen and to be able to glean some information and then use it in this program. It was, I think, probably one of our best tools. Prem, this was a vision of yours from the beginning, and I can't tell you how many times we wanted to just call you in the middle of the day to be able to, one, yell at you, but the other thing was to be able to give you kudos and thanks for giving us an extension of that vision. And Scott, I have to say, from the county standpoint, you're an invaluable asset to all of us, and you have a calm about you. So when we were putting this program together and the emphasis of holistic, we really had you come to mind. And so I wanted to thank you. I also want to be able to thank the funding source that came and made this a possibility is the USDA. Through this San Diego Farm Sustainability Program, USDA saw it within their power to give us the funding, and we represent the farms in this process and this program. As you can see, this is the 20 farmers that we had in our program. And so thanks to all of you on this webinar, and thank you for your support throughout this program. So I'd like to end on that note. I think Dane, a special thanks to you for pulling this webinar together, and Natalie for your effortless and tireless spell check for me especially. So thank you. I'm going to open it now. I think Dane wanted to do some final comments and then open it up to questions. Correct, Dane?
Yeah, that's correct. Actually, we have about 14 minutes. So I did want to open it up for Q&A. I want to hear from some of our participants. I see a lot of familiar names in our attendee group. So if you do have a question, I highly encourage you. I believe the feature is to raise your hand virtually, and then I will grant you, I guess, permission to talk, which feels very powerful. So if you do have any questions for Tony, Natalie, or myself, or one of the subject matter experts, I highly encourage you to raise your hand and ask your question. I believe you can also use the Q&A feature here on Zoom, and those will just come right in. But we'll just we'll wait a couple of moments here for any questions here. And if there are no questions, I just wanted to thank everybody for taking the time to join us this afternoon to learn a little bit about our program and what we do here at Community Health Improvement Partners and the Farm to Institution Center.
thank you. I think that wraps up our presentation. We again wanted to thank everyone. I know everyone these days are time deprived, and I do think we have a question if we're going to be sending out the recording, and that's a nod from Dane. So yes, we will be. So we'll make sure that you have your information. And I want to, I think, send you off with our gratitude. We can't do it without all of you. So you have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.